So today we're going to be continuing with reading The Curse of Cogston House. Now it's been a couple of weeks since we did read it, so I've popped the full book up if you need to have a quick look over just to refresh yourself about what happened. And let's go through now. Lucas stared in horror at Jack as his voice deliberately faded away for effect, mimicking ticking sounds. What happened next? Jack smirked. Who knows, that's how the story goes, it's probably just made up. But the curved staircase, the hallway, the pictures, they're all here like you described. Lucas' head flicked from side to side, searching for more details to match the story. He'd never felt totally convinced about coming in the house in the first place. Now, he was absolutely convinced he wanted to leave. The boys had not yet ventured beyond the bottom of the staircase, which opened out into the centre of the building. Jack seemed pleased with themselves as he sniggered and kicked at a scattering of broken stones in front of his feet. Hands in his pockets, he wandered further into the grips of the building with nonchalance, as though strolling through his own house. Lucas stood frozen for a moment and listened. He daren't move for fear of preventing himself from hearing a sound elsewhere. At first, there was nothing. Then, as he cocked his head to one side for a better chance of hearing, a faint sound broke the silence. Tick. All of the hairs on the back of Lucas' neck stood on end. I've had enough, he called out. I think we should get out of here. I knew you'd say that, replied Jack, wandering further down the passage. Luca had a sandstorm swirling in his throat. Desperately he swallowed, trying to wash away the dryness, and dithered into the centre of the passage. Every second he hesitated, Jack edged further away from him. Tick. With each horrendous noise, Luca's breathing quickened. Tick. He was panting now. Where was it coming from? Slowly, with dread filling him from toe to tip, he turned his head to track the source of the noise. Tick. Jack's story flashed through his head, and Luca felt as if all oxygen was being sucked out of him. Tick. Then, his heart in his mouth, Luca's eyes fell upon an explanation. The high window that he had noticed earlier was being accosted by a long branch, which was being thrown around rhythmically in the breeze. He watched, matching the ticking sound to the thin fingers of wood swaying and connecting with the murky glass. Tapping, not ticking. Luca breathed again. Hang on, he pleaded with Jack. While Luca had stood listening, Jack had continued to explore. Luca shook creepy thoughts from his mind like a wet dog shaking himself dry after a swim. His stomach grumbled rudely, making him wish that he was back home eating delicious spaghetti bolognese and savouring the heavenly smell of fresh garlic bread. Instead, he was still surrounded by the stinking innards of Cogston House. Jack said that the story probably wasn't even true. Luca told himself. He followed her in the direction of his friend with a little less trepidation, heading further into the hallway deeper into the house. Hoping that Jack hadn't gone too far without him, he began to pick up his own pace even more. As the hallway bent into a corner and Luca's walk broke into a trot, Jack loomed into view. He was standing motionless at the corner and his body had tensed. Luca rounded the corner and stopped abruptly. When he saw that what Jack was looking at the bottom almost dropped out of his stomach. Clocks. Not just one, but a row of tall grandfather clocks extending down the hallway as though standing in a queue. Creeping up the corridor towards them was a wave of soft ticking sounds. Clocks? Luca spluttered, taking a few steps backwards. That's it, I'm definitely out of here. Wait, look at this though, Jack responded. Tick. Luca was no longer in the mood for waiting or looking. Turning to the side, he began to edge back the way he had came, around the staircase and towards the first hallway. Tick. He suddenly felt the urge to keep his eyes on everything. His friend, the staircase, the darkness that felt like it was closing in on him. He daren't look where he was going. Tick. Sliding his feet crab-style along the dusty floor, he scraped through crinkly leaves which were disintegrated under his feet. It was staggering how, considering his struggle to identify the quiet tapping of a branch on the window moments ago, the crescendo of ticking was now echoing loudly through his head. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Jack! Jack stepped closer to one of the clocks. This one's stopped, he called out. You're not going to believe what time it says. Luca didn't need to be told. Something inside him was already screaming that time. 10:31. Jack was standing, transfixed, staring into the face of the huge grandfather clock. Still backing away, Luca threw a glance up the staircase, then back towards Jack. His friend was peering forward to scrutinise the clock. What was holding his attention? Why couldn't he just leave like Luca was? Jack? Yeah, Jack muttered. Mesmerised, he was reaching out a hand and placing it in front of the clock. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Luca kept moving, his back against one wall and his eyes constantly scanning. Jack was becoming more out of focus, blending into the encroaching darkness as Luca shuffled noisily away. Ah! Something huge and solid had collided with Luca's back. Cursing himself for not looking where he was going, he spun around and grabbed hold of a heavy cloak that had appeared behind him, which was not in any danger of toppling, or a heavy cloth that had appeaed behind him, which was not in any danger of toppling, but chimed and groaned at being disturbed. As he clutched it with his sweaty palms, he felt his weedy mechanism rocking inside. Tick-tock, tick-tock. He steadied himself and exhaled the breath that he hadn't realised he'd been holding on to. Turning back to face the corridor, he panted, "It's okay, I'm okay, Jack." Jack didn't respond. Okay, so at this point, the story has got two endings. I'm going to read ending 1 and I will pop ending 2 in the files section if you would like to read it, but it's a little bit of a cliffhanger at the end, maybe not quite such a neat and tidy ending. So if you would like to read ending 2, it's there for you. In the moment that Luca had turned, his friend had entered a kind of trance and was leaning his entire body against the clock as though listening to its heartbeat. "Jack!" Luca bellowed. Without hesitation, Luca rushed to his friend, grabbed his wrist and began to drag him towards the staircase and the doorway beyond. Panting, he hauled Jack with all his might. They had only just made it to the foot of the spiral staircase when, crack, every muscle in Luca's body froze. A stomach-turning sound had floated down from the darkness which seemed to swallow at the top of the stairs. There was no branch on the window. The sound bore out the weight of a heavy foot on rotting floorboards. Jack blinked and stared horrified at Luca as his eyes began to regain their focus. Unable to resist, Luca gazed into the darkness at the top of the stairs and thought he saw a shadowy flicker. They ran. Without a backwards glance, the pair sprinted down the long, darkening hallway towards the exit. Not caring about adding to the scratches on their arms or backs, they dived through the makeshift doorway which led them back outside into the now pelting rain. Luca's chest burned and his legs screamed at him as he ran faster than he ever had before, wiping his eyes furiously as prickly tears began to form. Pale-faced and panting, the boys threw themselves at the gap in the hedge and scrambled back through the top end towards the swings, not stopping until the smell of spaghetti bolognese and garlic bread reached them. Okay, so that was our first ending. So the boys got away nice and safe from the house. There is another ending if you would like to read it. It is in the files section. So now that you've heard the first ending to the story, I would like you to give the story 2 stars and a wish, just like a little tiny mini review. So just 2 things that you liked about it and 1 thing that you didn't or you would like to improve for the story. You could do that on either ending. It's up to you what you do. So once you've done your 2 stars and a wish on the Curse of Cogston House, you're going to move on to your next task. So I would like you to do about 20 minutes of independent reading. Now, you can choose any book you've got at home, or I will pop a website up where you can find some books to read, and I'll put login details on there for you. You don't need to use that, it's just if you don't have anything at home that you want to read. So you're doing about 20 minutes of independent reading, making sure you're focusing on, if any words you don't know, trying to work out what they are. And then finally, you've got a task to design a new book cover. You could do this for the Curse of Cogston House if you wanted, but you could also choose to do it for any book at all. Now, when you're looking at designing a book cover, it's not just a case of drawing a picture that kind of has something to do with the book. You need to include the author's name, the title of the book, an illustration which demonstrates something about what the book's about. So if it's a spooky book and you've got multiple bright colours on the cover, that's not really going to work. And the other way around, if it's a really happy book and everything's all grey and dark, it's not really going to give somebody an idea of what the book's about by looking at the cover. So you need to know what the content of the book is and kind of theme the sort of vibe or mood of your cover around that. What I've done is I have popped some examples of alternative covers for Wonder so you can see what they would look like, and then you can do your own book cover. I've popped a template up, but you don't need to use it, you can just draw one out. So hopefully you enjoy having a bit of screen time away and doing that. So all you have to do on Teams is write your 2 stars no-ish for Cogston House, and then you're doing your 20 minutes independent reading, and then you're designing your own book cover.